Good morning, everyone. The House Committee on Higher Ed will come to order, and the clerk will please take attendance.
Chair Glanville.
Here.
Representative Reingans.
Here.
Colazar.
Here.
Scott.
Present.
Burns.
Here.
Kofia. Hill.
Here.
McDonald.
Here.
Pies.
Present.
Vanderwall.
Present.
Paquette.
Here.
Zorn.
Here.
DeSena.
Here.
Coontz.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Reingans moves to approve the minutes of the February 8th meeting without objection, so ordered. And can we have, folks, if you're on Zoom, if you can please mute. Thank you. This morning, we have a couple of presentations. We're going to flip the script just a little bit, though. We need to get some resources, I think, back from the 60 by 30 program. So we're going to start with Brandy Johnson, the president of Michigan Community Colleges Association. And thank you so much for being here this morning. And I'll just let you kind of introduce yourself in the program, and we'll get started.
Great. While she's pulling up, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thanks so much for having me here. My name is Brandy Johnson. I am the president of the Michigan Community College Association and have been in this role for just over a year, but have spent 15 years or so working in higher education policy. So I'm incredibly enthusiastic about the creation of this committee and really looking forward to working with you over the next couple of years at least. So just a little bit about the community college, thank you so much, the Community College Association. So we represent all of Michigan's two-year institutions. Our mission reads that we are the unified voice for Michigan's community colleges, empowering our members to lead in the areas of student success, talent development, and community vitality. In absence of a state higher education executive office, the association plays the role of coordinating the advocacy efforts of our members and also identifies opportunities for collaboration and efficiencies between our members. We support our colleges in delivering education and training that is responsive to a very local labor market, and we also champion strategies that will improve student success rates. So identifying policy and research opportunities to help improve our members' outcomes for our students. And like I said, we foster collaboration and partnerships between community colleges and between community colleges and stakeholders. We are 31 members strong, which is new for us. There are 28 public community colleges in Michigan, but last year our board of directors unanimously voted to amend our bylaws to allow Michigan's tribal colleges to join the MCCA. So we now represent all 28 public state-funded community colleges as well as 3 tribal colleges. I report to a board of 62 members, including the 31 presidents and 1 representative trustee or regent from each of our colleges. With the exception of the tribal colleges, all of our colleges' board of directors are locally elected officials. We have more than 132 campuses across our institutions, serving 270,000 students across the state. This is a map of what our community college districts look like. As you'll notice, about 50% of the land mass in Michigan is not represented by a community college district, meaning they don't pay local property taxes into supporting their districts. That represents about 80% of the population, however. So 20% of the population does not live in a community college district. The largest counties include both Ottawa County and Livingston County. The rest are largely rural in nature. A profile of the students that we serve. So we serve an incredibly diverse population, but increasingly our student population is more and more female, is getting older thanks to Michigan Reconnect, which you'll hear about, and about over 70% of our students are part-time, indicating that they are likely working locally and or raising a family. The last year that we have complete data for our Degrees and Certificates Award is 2020. Overwhelmingly, we award associate degrees, almost 20,000 that year, but we also award industry-recognized certificates as well as credentials on the workforce development side of the community college house. Statute authorizes community colleges to deliver baccalaureate degrees in a very narrow set of highly technical fields like maritime technology and cement technology. And you'll see we just awarded only 84 bachelor's degrees across all of our institutions that year. I'm here to talk about Michigan Reconnect. You'll hear a lot more about the ins and outs of the program from my colleague Sarah Zerpicki momentarily. But in a nutshell, Michigan Reconnect provides a tuition-free college opportunity for adults age 25 and older that are seeking an associate degree, that have been Michigan residents for at least a year and don't already have a college degree. The Reconnect was established by law in 2020, was really stood up and started in 2021, and then at the end of last year was amended to make some improvements to the program. We are really looking forward to working with this committee to help propose some additional opportunities for improvement of the program, including lowering the age to 21. This was something that the governor has proposed for a couple of years now, as well as opportunities to improve the accountability system that was amended in 2022. In addition to providing tuition-free opportunities for adult Michiganders, I think that it's really important to recognize the huge impact that the Reconnect laws have had in terms of higher education policy and really mandating that colleges implement research-driven best practices in a couple of areas. Perhaps the biggest one is related to developmental education. So historically, community colleges have offered standalone remedial education for students that are coming in underprepared academically. And while this is incredibly well-meaning, there's little evidence that placing students in standalone remedial education coursework actually helps them ever complete a credential. If you're thinking about working-aged adults, 25 and older, many of them have been out of the high school game, particularly in math, for a long time, and so do need some sort of refreshing and catching up. As opposed to placing those students in standalone developmental education that takes time, tuition, and doesn't result in credit that counts toward your degree, most colleges have now embraced a co-requisite model of delivering remedial education where an individual that needs additional academic preparation can take the sort of catch-up or developmental remedial content and actually sort of put it into the same course as credit-bearing college-level entry Math 101, English 101, so with lots of additional support surrounding it, so that by the end of the semester, the student has received significant support in those critical gateway courses and are ending the semester with credit toward their degree or credential. That's a lot of background to say that one of the things that motivated our colleges to really embrace a more robust co-rec model is this Reconnect legislation. In 2020, the legislature, very appropriately and intelligently said that in order to be eligible for Michigan Reconnect, colleges must use a different model of delivering remedial education than the standalone course. And I think that will significantly improve our graduation rates. And so I think it's a really good example of how these bills have been used very impactfully to improve student success outcomes. Another example, and this was included in the most recent amendments to Reconnect legislation, really requires our colleges to award credit for prior learning and provides incentives for them to do so. So adults that are coming into community college, into one of our certificate or associate degree programs, often bring with them significant experience, life experience, work experience, perhaps they have military experience or have earned some other type of license or industry recognized credential. Now, our colleges are sort of required to help audit that learning that happens before they even start and award them credit for any of those experiences. And there's actually a built-in incentive for colleges to do that. That means it will ultimately lower the program costs of Reconnect because students will be able to finish much sooner when they have sort of this early momentum and they're entering college with credits already on their transcript, hopefully lowering the time that they're in college so that they can enter the labor market. Here's one example from Muskegon Community College. If an individual was, say, working in the early childhood field and had a child development associate, which is a certificate or a certification, and they want to pursue an associate degree in early childhood development, if they have that CDA license and can say at the beginning of their educational journey at Muskegon Community College, hey, I already did my CDA, Muskegon Community College will automatically award 2 credits for that. So they're not repeating the same type of content or coursework and really recognizes and honors their learning and experience. So with that, like I said, you'll hear a lot more about the overview of the program from my colleague Sarah, but I'm happy to answer any questions about Reconnect or community colleges writ large. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Randy. I'm really excited to see some of that about the credit or the competency-based model and how we're honoring folks for their previous experience and what they bring to the table so that there's some incentive there for people to come back in a pathway to move into maybe, to transition into a new career path or something along those lines. So thank you for that work and the overview. Do we have any questions? Yes, Rep. Paez?
Excuse me, there's a community college, Wayne County Community College has a campus in my district. I've been able to take advantage of free programs that they offer for seniors. I was wondering if that was just that particular college or if that's throughout the state that you offer. The courses that I've seen offered have been everything from yoga and dance to basic computer skills for seniors, some Excel programs, things like that. So I'm wondering if that program is throughout the state and how that is funded.
Madam Chair, thank you for that question, Representative. So really great question. So I mentioned the MCCA's mission statement is that we empower our members to lead in the areas of student success, talent development, and community vitality. And I think that's a perfect example of community vitality by providing opportunities, really educational enrichment and adult lifelong learning opportunities. And yes, all of our colleges across the state offer those types types of opportunities for their communities. Sometimes there's a small fee associated with it. Sometimes the colleges partner with their own foundation to support those efforts. And sometimes they use operational funds to help support those community enrichment activities. I know Representative Colazar is familiar with this one. Schoolcraft College offers some brewmaster making opportunities where adults can learn how to brew their own beer at home. Yeah, so I encourage you to visit Livonia. It's a particularly popular class.
Thank you. Rep. Vanderwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for being here today. Really, it goes back to the picture that you had of where our community colleges stand and how much land mass right now. Really, I'm probably label it as college desert. What do you think that we need to do to be able to encompass some of these areas that are underserved in higher education, that we can give better opportunities to our young people to remain where they live, get an education, and hopefully continue to work in their community?
Madam Chair, thank you so much for that question, Representative. It does come down to a degree of political will amongst the voters in those communities. I will give you one example recently where we had a successful annexation where a community chose to become part of a community college district, and that's Mid-Michigan College, which has historically served the Clare and Gladwin areas. Although Central Michigan University, which is a phenomenal institution, is located within Isabella County, there wasn't a community college district that served those individuals. So after multiple attempts, ultimately the city of Mount Pleasant and really their school district boundaries opted to join the community college district for a small millage, and therefore allowing students that live in Mount Pleasant to be able to attend Mid-Michigan College at the in-district tuition rate, and that also led Mid-Michigan College to opening up a beautiful campus in Mount Pleasant. Just to give you sort of our averages as it relates to tuition and fees for students attending community college within their district. Our tuition is incredibly affordable. On average, including mandatory fees, students pay $147.18 for in-district. For students attending out of district, the average rate is $226.58. So it's about 42% more, and that sort of represents the difference between not being able to capture a millage for students attending or that live outside of a district. So to answer your question, I do think that there are multiple ways that we could crack that nut, but the sort of most straightforward one would be to either encourage and incent communities to really consider if being annexed by an existing community college district rather than building more community colleges would be the best fit for them. And I know communities, for example, in the Thumb have had that conversation. I know communities in Ottawa County have had that conversation. It's something that, ought to be considered at the local level.
Thank you. That's it. Yep. Representative Coons. Did you have a question? Oh, sure. Yep, we'll hold that. Anyone else for MCCA? Okay.
Thanks
and
again.
Thank you. And who do we have next? So as we're switching gears here, we'll have Leo set up, and I hope everybody has the correct presentation in front of them. It didn't pick up on the mic. You're good. As they're getting set up too, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I think it's really important that we do some of this level setting as we enter into this newish committee. And so that was the reason we're going to be doing a couple of presentations here for our first few meetings, and appreciate everyone's flexibility in rescheduling and joining us going forward. So, ready? Okay, so I will turn it over. Let me see. We have. We have Sarah Serpicki.
Yep, Sherpicki.
Sherpicki. Sarah Sherpicki is with us, as well as Todd Cook from Leo to discuss the 60 by 30
Great.
program.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you so much for having us, and to all the members of the committee. We're really appreciative of your interest and the opportunity to talk about what we've been doing at Leo and in the Office of 60 by 30. I am Sarah Sherpicki. I'm the director of the office, and I've been there for about 11 months now. So I wasn't involved in the office's formation and the stand-up of the really wonderful programs that exist, but have been digging in for almost a year. And I think we are going to talk about Reconnect, as Brandy mentioned. We also are going to talk about sort of the other programs that have started landing in our office. So without a centralized sort of Office of Higher Ed, there are functions that the legislature has sort of asked 60 by 30 to take on, and in order to meet the governor's goal of having 60% of our working age adults have a post-secondary degree or credential by 2030. And so we'll talk about the few different things that we do today, and I think it's a great time to be sort of asking, like, how's it going and what's next? So first, I just want to, we're embedded within the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. And so I just want to highlight our mission is to expand economic opportunity and prosperity for all. And we're a department where we're focused on people, places, and communities, and how do we support those things together to create economic opportunity for Michigan's people and businesses. And that is our, org chart. So 60 by 30 is located within the Office of Prosperity. And as you can see, I'm not going to read our strategic focus areas to you, but education is key. Education generates economic mobility, and so it's at the heart of both closing equity gaps and helping Michiganders who want to work hard figure out what the opportunities are for them in our state. So some of the key metrics within our office, you can see our 60 by 30 post-secondary attainment goal is critical to the overall goal of Leo. So we're really a sort of critical function within the department. Okay. Oh. Okay. This is not the. Yep, but it's okay. I can talk about these things. Can you go back to the Lumina slide? Thanks. All right. So this is really new data that show this. So in order to measure progress towards our goal of 60 by 30, we use data that is generated by the Lumina Foundation. And that's partly because the census data doesn't get into the level below sort of associate degrees. So if you're just looking at census level data about post-secondary attainment, you are sort of missing that, that world that Brandy mentioned of like industry recognized certificates and credentials. And so Lumina allows us to measure that. They do a survey that allows that. So this data just came out, although it is, the data on these really lag. So that these actual data are a year or two old. And we saw an increase from 49.1% the sort of 2 years before this. And what we did see was pretty good growth among associate and bachelor's degrees, and less growth in the credentials of value area. So it doesn't mean that we grew fewer credentials, but that they weren't meeting Lumina's standards for value. So that's something that we're focused on understanding. But really some positive growth in this world. Go ahead. Our office is focused on sort of bringing these three themes together of closing our skills gap, that we hear about, and you're probably hearing about a lot from our employer partners and stakeholders, that we know we need to increase the talent of Michigan's workforce, and we need to increase opportunity for our Michiganders. And overall, our talent pool, we know, is really what is driving companies' decisions about whether to stay in Michigan or whether to come to Michigan. They ask about the depth of the talent pool. We believe 60 by 30, our mission is really critical to Michigan's sort of overall competitiveness. So the programs that our office runs today are the Futures for Frontliners grant program, the Michigan Reconnect grant program, and this says Skills to Work. This is actually, there are a couple of different sort of shorter term training programs that there was one version that was Skills to Work. The Reconnect amendments that just passed in December call them the Reconnect short-term training program. There's also some training dollars within the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. So our office runs those sort of three sets of things, this group of short-term training, Reconnect, and Futures. Yeah, again. So, yeah, that's all right.
I apologize, Madam Chair. We've had a change in the presentation. I'm going to let Sarah talk from this and what's been passed out to the committee rather than the
So
confusion
you
what's on
guys
the
have
screen.
Thank
Yours
you.
isn't matching this either.
No.
Great, okay, that's
Yeah.
great.
That's my fault, Madam Chair. I apologize for that. But
Okay.
I'll let Sarah get back on track with the presentation that the members have.
All right, so let's go to, how about page 10?
They're not numbered.
They're not
Can you
numbered.
tell
Okay,
us what
it
the
looks
headline
like
would be?
this.
What
says
does
major
it say at the
talent.
top?
Major talent investments. Thank you all for being nimble with us. Are you finding it? Got it, okay. So this is sort of what I was just talking about. We put a little 60 by the little 60 icon there, a 60 by 30 icon for the programs that our office administers. But we just wanted to sort of show them in the context of other investments in talent that the state has been making. And so, again, I don't administer the Going Pro Talent Fund or the apprenticeship expansion, but these are other ways that we're looking at creating opportunity for Michiganders. The Achievement Scholarship, a really exciting scholarship that passed last year, is administered by the Treasury Department. We are all for it. It is key to our mission of achieving 60 by 30 ultimately. And then you can see that we are the administrators of the short-term training programs in both of these. If we go to, now I'll sort of get into the details of some of these programs. So if we go to the slide on Futures for Frontliners, it's like the next page, I think, for you, hopefully. Thank you. Okay, so Futures for Frontliners was modeled on the GI Bill, and it rewarded folks who were really serving on the front lines in the immediate sort of onset of the COVID pandemic. And so it provided a tuition-free path to community college for folks without an associate degree. It was a grant period that was only open for a few months, and we had more than 120,000 applicants. So what that tells me, and what the Reconnect numbers tell me, is that like Michiganders are really raising their hands when we're creating these opportunities. Over 85,000 qualified. We did have to verify that they were indeed on the front lines during that time in the pandemic. And over 26,000 enrolled. 3,500 have since graduated. So Futures isn't a program that will grow. You know, we will see the cohort sort of through, but it is not a program people can still apply for. Then we provided a little bit of a breakdown of the demographics of our Futures for Frontliners applicants and sort of who's showing up for these programs. So then we'll get into Reconnect. So Reconnect is now just an ongoing program. We get new applications for Reconnect every day. Sometimes, if there's been a big marketing push, we might get 100 new applicants in a day. And so Reconnect is about making it easier and more affordable for Michigan adults who lack an associate degree to enroll in one of our community colleges and earn that post-secondary degree. So since the launch, more than 114,000 applicants have been accepted. The number, I think, we put this slide together last week. The number is probably higher now, right? More than 24,000 have enrolled, and more than 2,000 have graduated with an associate degree or a credential. So there are around 4 million Michigan adults who who would be eligible, we believe, for this opportunity. So there's a lot of opportunity to keep serving those folks. Oh, okay. Yes, I can. More than 24,000 enrolled, and we have more than 2,000 graduates. So again, it really feels like Futures. The sort of expectations of the program were really exceeded. Like nobody knew at the beginning, at the launch, sort of how many people would show up, and obviously people really have. So again, we provide a little bit of a demographic breakdown of our Reconnect participants. So a little bit about the student success. We sit in an office where, I'm not talking to students every day. Our navigators are, and I'll talk a little bit about them. But we do sort of hear from the colleges and hear sometimes from students directly about how life-changing the program is. So we just wanted to share the story of Marilyn Deer. She was featured in a My North article a little while ago. So she graduated at age 70, has 5 children and 11 grandchildren, and is sort of among those thousands of people who used Reconnect to finish their degree and provide an example for their kids and grandkids. We also showcase Caleb Wegler. So he sustained an on-the-job injury and then received really excellent health care and decided that he wanted to sort of go back to school in order to become a nurse, to sort of pay back this experience that he'd felt with the nurses who'd taken care of him. And so, and has told us, this just wouldn't have been possible for me without Reconnect. So one element of Reconnect is that the program funds 10 navigators. So the navigators work in our office, virtually, and are each connected with one or more community colleges. And so when a student applies and is accepted to Reconnect, they start we start reaching out to them via the navigator who sort of works with their college so that we can help them overcome sort of whatever barriers are between them and actually enrolling. So you complete the Reconnect application, you still have to complete your FAFSA, the financial aid, to be eligible for financial aid, and you have to actually enroll in the college still. And so there are a lot of opportunities for people to get off track. Remember, we're talking about adults, so many, probably most of our Reconnectors are in the workforce and have might have kids, they have adult responsibilities. So it's not a small thing to go back to school. So our Reconnect navigators connect them to community resources, make sure they know about the resources that their community college provides, help them fill out their FAFSA, anything else that we can do. And the navigators really go sort of above and beyond to build relationships with students and make sure that they they'll help them figure out their childcare schedule, right? To do whatever they can to help them actually enroll. And so we also invested $430,000 into MCAN's College Completion Corps, College Completion Coach Corps, which provides additional coaches embedded on the campuses to help students again, navigate those barriers that continue to come up. Enrolling is only the first step, right? Then they have to sort of actually manage their schedule and complete their courses. And so providing additional sort of holistic wraparound advising support for students to help them succeed. So these are all sort of critical pieces of helping make sure we're not just getting students to show up on campus, but helping to ensure that they can complete. In fiscal year 22, the $6 million was appropriated to provide like barrier removal support for Reconnect students. And so we distributed that to the colleges on sort of a per pupil basis based on how many Reconnect and Future students they were serving, to provide additional kind of wraparound stipend support. So colleges could pay or provide students with support if their car broke down and they were no longer able to make it to classes. So to help students like deal with emergencies. So, and colleges handled that funding in different ways, but it was all supposed to be really directly supportive of students. And so we are currently collecting, last semester was the first semester that these even though it was fiscal year 22, it was late in a supplemental, I believe. So last semester was the first semester we were actually rolled this out. We'll have data next month about sort of what that meant for student persistence. But the stories we've been hearing anecdotally from colleges are that like it's really making a difference for students' ability to stay enrolled. So increasing Reconnect enrollment. So this is one of our priorities in the office right now. I think, thinking about the first 2 years of Reconnect as just this huge push to let people know that the opportunity was available was really critical. And now we want to make sure that those people who applied for Reconnect actually enroll in a community college, right? We have a gap right now of people who haven't taken that next step. And so our commitment in 60 by 30 is to continue to sort of support our navigators in growing and building their relationships with their community colleges. It's really by partnering with the schools and MCCA, for instance, that we're able to provide the most seamless sort of handoff for students. We are interested in growing that barrier removal support opportunity so that students have access to emergency funds. Growing our partnership with the community colleges. For instance, we're sort of collaborating on other ways to sort of welcome students so that they really feel a sense of like belonging and that we're sort of wrapping around them together. And cooperating on like marketing this summer for our students to help them take the next step, providing FAFSA workshops, more opportunities to provide support with that. We also are changing a little bit about how we communicate with students once they've completed their application. So we're adding text messaging to the ways that we reach out to folks. Again, working on more joint marketing with the institutions. And we have just started recruiting students to join an ambassador program for Reconnect so that they can help tell their own stories about what Reconnect has meant for them, let students know or potential students know about the opportunity. So we're really looking for ways to sort of increase the number of students who actually enroll and, of course, persist. Okay, now I'm on the slide that says 60 by 30 assigned to, are we all? Okay, good, thanks. So I do, as Brandy mentioned, a couple of things that the sort of legislature required and the governor in the most recent version of the Reconnect bills that were passed in December. And part of what, again, without an Office of Higher Ed in the state, sort of one thing that the legislature has looked to 60 by 30 to do increasingly, especially in this last set of bills, is to become the sort of monitoring and compliance tool for the practices that it has now required. So the requirement around co-requisite learning, the credit for prior learning, so some of these things that Brandy talked about that are now the schools must do, we are the entity who will say, did you do it? And sort of be looking at the data about that. So that's one way that our office is being used now. So we just wanted to sort of highlight that. We collect annual compliance reports from the colleges so that we sort of know about how all of these changes are rolling out. Okay, the short-term training programs, I'll just be sort of quick on this. So the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, just to awards up to $4,000 over 2 years for short-term training programs. Those can be at private providers or at community colleges. The Reconnect short-term training grants is up to $1,500, sort of one time towards tuition costs for these programs. So again, these are sub-associate degree programs. The eligibility for Reconnect is sort of identical to Reconnect. The eligibility for the Achievement Scholarship is very similar to the Achievement Scholarship eligibility. You can use a short-term training program with Michigan Achievement Scholarship. You could use one of those grants and then still be eligible after that for sort of the associate degree portion of the Achievement Scholarship. So we just wanted to lay that out. So the eligibility is a little bit different and the grant amounts are a little bit different. What will be identical, though, are the programs that are eligible, and that's something that we're still creating right now. That's really defined in the Reconnect Grant Act, who the eligible training providers are. It's not that they're laid out, their criteria are articulated there, and we're working to develop that list of who will be the eligible training providers. And I think that's something to watch around the hope that Michigan is helping people find more credentials of high value that are sort of lead to in-demand and good jobs. So the last topic is I just wanted to do like 2 minutes on the governor's budget recommendations for fiscal year 24 or a supplemental. And I think what we believe these budget recommendations show is an understanding that increasing access through financial aid, that in the way that Reconnect does and in the way that the Achievement Scholarship does, for instance, is really critical. And we also need to understand that there's more we can do around ensuring the students who enroll are successful on their college journey. The items that are for LEO, for the Office of 60 by 30, connected to this mission, are $140 million to expand Reconnect down to age 21, using fiscal recovery fund dollars. So that one's fairly straightforward. The increase to $65.2 million for Reconnect just reflects that our program cohorts will grow, right? At first, we just had 1 year of students, and now we'll have 3 years. So that just reflects the annual sort of cost estimates. And then there's the creation of the bachelor's degree pathway within Reconnect. So that's really an acknowledgement that many people had their education disrupted by COVID. You know, we saw enrollment of traditional age students drop during the pandemic, sort of when they were finishing high school and enrolling in college, and we saw a large number of stop-outs during that time as well. And so we already are creating the sort of associate degree pathway through Reconnect for these students. And this is saying, well, we also need to create a pathway back to education for students pursuing bachelor's degrees. But that would be sort of this one-time, also use fiscal recovery fund dollars to support students with a scholarship that would maybe look sort of like the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, but be for that defined class of students who failed to enroll after high school or who stopped out during that time. And then the student wraparound services and basic needs is, again, that's to grow the pot of and set of tools that we can use to help students, especially lower income students who are more likely to stop out of college, so that we can provide more wraparound support for those students. And so we would kind of design the use of those funds in partnership with the colleges. But there's an immense need there. I think, potentially somewhere between 40 and 50% of Michigan's college students are housing or food insecure. So there's a lot of work to do. Like, that shouldn't be a barrier to education, right? And then the College Success Fund, again, we know that it's not just about access, it's also about helping students persist through school and earn a degree. There are best practices out there that institutions around the country, and some of whom are in Michigan, have leverage in order to increase student success at their institutions. And so this pot of funding would be used to help colleges adopt more of those practices. So whether it's like more holistic advising and data intervention systems, and other sort of curricular redesign, like there's a lot that we can help our colleges do as they're working hard to serve our students. So that's that. So that's the end of the budget. I hope what we do, and happy to answer any questions. Thanks again for rolling with our presentation malfunctions.
And Madam Chair, if I could just interact. First of all, thank you to Sarah for working through and your patience in terms of some of the technical issues on my part. But I really want to stress that the work that 60 by 30 does and the Michigan Community College Association here in terms of the difference it makes in people's lives. And, I think we shouldn't underestimate the importance this is going to have in terms of, we see in other parts of the country, places that have higher income growth, it's related to almost always to higher education standards. And so that's an important part why we're on this. And so it's not just to get kids enrolled and older adults enrolled in community college. It's about giving them the tools they need to make their lives different and better. I'm sorry. I thought someone was trying to get my attention. I'm sorry. Sorry. I apologize for that. But again, I can't stress enough that the partnerships that the community colleges have done have really been integral in this and going forward. And we're really excited about this and welcome any questions you have about the program.
Can I say one more thing? I just realized part of the slides that didn't make it in that one and I sort of skipped over were some of the just really core economic data about the impact that education has. So when you're looking at a population level, it decreases poverty, it increases median wages, it increases labor market participation, the sort of more educated your population are. And again, we know that labor force participation is critical. It decreases unemployment, it improves health outcomes, right? So that was how I was intending to start, was to say, these are the data that inform why this is so critical. So thanks for bringing me back to that, Todd. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone. It seems like we're in a little bit of a challenging room here today. And I just want to go back to what you just wrapped up on real quick. Grand Rapids Community College, which is in my district, I believe is one of the top, if not the top, participant in the Reconnect program. I believe we have 9 or 10% of all the students in the state are at GRCC. And so I've had an opportunity to meet with some of them and hear more about the programming. And one thing that I don't think came up in your examples that I want to flag for others as well is one of our student success stories is a student who's currently enrolled as a Reconnect student, and he's been picked up by an employer along the way. And that employer, so we're looking at, you're talking exactly, it's like, we're looking for workforce talent, and the employer is, being flexible with the work schedule to allow the student to finish and then continue working with them. So we're already starting to see students being pulled into the workforce, through the program in those kind of skilled trades that we're looking for. So, and that's just one. So I look forward. And the data, I know we got some data. I was at a meeting with them earlier this week. So some of those wraparound services, I was really surprised to see that transportation was really like one of the number one, above housing, transportation. And so I think it'll be interesting to see when that data comes through what can inform us. I think one of the questions that I had today was around aside from this program, what are other things the state can do to wrap around and support? And I think some of that data we get back on those wraparound services will help us understand like the importance of transportation systems and of course housing, we all know that one, child care, and some of these other elements that we might have some influence on. That maybe we weren't thinking about when we came to the higher ed committee. So no question there, just a couple of comments. We do have a few questions online here, though, and I will invite Representative Reingens. You had a...
Thank you. My question's about the Futures for Frontliners program. I am curious, of the 35 folks who have graduated, what jobs were they doing on the front lines, and then what are their credentials in now, and what kind of jobs are they moving to? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I've worked in the past in the health area, and I hear nonstop about the need for healthcare workforces. And so I was curious for folks who worked through the pandemic if they chose to go into healthcare fields or actually get the heck out. So curious if you have the data on that yet.
That's a great question. I don't have that here, but we can see what we can get you on that. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah, no, I think because it's early, still early on that, but obviously, the frontliners, entailed a lot of different people, from healthcare workers to folks who made sure that our grocery stores were still stocked at a time when it was unknown about the impact of COVID and things like that. So it really is a wide swath of workers who applied here, and because we're still early on and it takes a couple of years to complete, we'll have that. But I think that's one of the important things in terms of the data that's going to be provided by community college that the office is tracking is going to be really, really helpful for us to make sure that we're accomplishing what we intended to do with this program. It seems to be doing that anecdotally right now, so the data would most likely support that, but we'll have hard data on that as it comes along and those programs mature for sure.
And so what kinds of data are you collecting from the 3,500 grads? Do you have examples?
So we know we don't have a lot of personal data around them. That's all protected information. But we do know sort of what they're completing in and what credential they've earned. We don't immediately know what their job placement is, unless colleges sort of just tell us that, But that's not a data set that gets reported.
Okay, I might follow up with you later. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Representative Peckett online.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your guys' presentation. I actually have two questions. One of the first ones is I was opposed to Reconnect based on the fact that it's last dollar, meaning that the people that cannot afford it have to go through the FAFSA and get federal aid first. So this money that goes to Reconnect actually goes to people who can afford it. My question is, do these expansions, lowering the age to 21 and the achievement grants, are they also last dollar in nature?
Yes. They haven't been enacted yet, the sort of age expansion, but yes, they would also be last dollar. And okay. I think this is a great thing to be thinking about because we do want to think about how are we making these resources available for students who need it the most. It does allow us to really leverage a lot of federal funding. There are a lot of students who were attracted to the program by Reconnect and the marketing, and it was exciting, and where their education ends up actually being fully covered by federal Pell Grants. So okay. There is a leverage sort of opportunity there, but thank you for the question. Wait, what's that?
Well, I appreciate that because that's an area where I know there are reasons and criteria that young people with those federal grants have to pay them back when they're kind of being sold that it's free money. So that's another issue. But my second question is, especially with the Department of Education, I chaired the K-12 committee on appropriations, subcommittee on appropriations last term. And one thing, especially with education, the Department of Education used to have a goal, called the top 10 in 10 years. And, we're like 7-8 years into that. It's not going to happen. So with this goal of 60 by 30, if that doesn't happen, what then?
Well, I think that's a great question. It's something that comes up in a lot of policy representative. I think the reason for the goal is the fact that, in terms of the citizens of Michigan, we know that these post-secondary skill credentials will allow them to be more successful in life, have more success both in terms of career but also financially. We also know that to be competitive in the world today, we need to have a more talented workforce, overall. So we have to kind of, push the system and had to change our behavior in terms of how we did this. It's like any program. We're going to work hard to make it successful. We have to make sure that we're growing at the right rate, and there's lots of different things that are going into the 60 by 30 attainment in addition to Reconnect. But again, I think it's a common goal that we've seen bipartisan support for in the past is, making sure that our citizens are upskilled and that we have a talented workforce that employers can rely on. And so we're pushing hard for success in those matters. We have seen from other states that have done similar programs that are maybe a few years ahead of Michigan. We've seen the trend lines in those states be positive, and so the assumption is learning from the lessons that they're doing and making sure that this system is tweaked for the uniqueness of Michigan, that we'll also be successful on that.
All right, thank you so much.
So just to follow up on that briefly, having been engaged in this kind of strategic work in the past and, the goal setting and then, the theory of change and how we get there and the iteration that goes along that pathway, just curious, how often are you reporting out? You said that you had some metrics you were working towards. So is that an annual report? Can we expect to see something that we might be able to, take a look at the data now and start doing some of those tweaks along the way?
Yeah, so there's a number of different of factors that come into the 60 by 30 goal. Obviously, a big part of that is Reconnect and the work that Sarah and her team in 60 by 30 are doing in conjunction with their partners at the MCCA and other institutions. It's also things like making sure that we're encouraging inbound immigration into the state. So that it's not just growing our own set of talent here, but it's also attracting it. So that kind of goes a little bit beyond 60 by 30 in terms of all the work that you're doing in terms of making communities attractive to not only corporate interests and development needs, but also that people want to live in our communities and want to be here. And particularly folks who may have higher skill sets and higher educational attainment, so they can come here and see the advantages of living in all of your districts and things like that. So there's a number of different data points. Sarah talked about the Lumina Foundation that provides some data that is helpful in terms of putting in perspective not just Michigan, but how we stand amongst our peers in all the other states. And so there's going to be some specific data that the 60 by 30 program is going to be able to provide in terms of that, and then Lumina will help us kind of this overall picture of where we kind of are at. Obviously, that's a third-party evaluation, but we think it's important on that for that very reason.
Sure, okay, thank you. We have a couple more questions. Representative Scott.
It's not lighting up. It sounds on. Oh, is it? Hello? Okay, good. Thank you. So my question refers to Future for Frontliner applicants. Looking at the demo breakdown overall, I show your students of color are significantly less. Why is that?
So I'm not sure that it is disproportionate. So I think it is it is over proportionate, yeah. And so I think that we're just reflecting the population of Michigan right now. I do think I think that's a question worth continuing to ask, though.
So maybe are they not applying? Is that what you're saying, potentially?
No, I'm saying they're applying at the same rate as folks of other races and ethnicities.
But they're not being accepted? So what?
No, these are all accepted.
Okay.
The demographics that you see here are all of accepted applicants.
Okay, so I guess I want to ask, so how many students of color are applying? And then, because I'm showing you have 26% of Black African American as opposed to 59%. No, that's the overall program. Oh, overall.
People enrolled, 26 are Black or African American, 26%.
Okay.
It's a higher proportion than our state.
Okay.
13% Black or African American people.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I think, Representative Scott, you bring up a great question, and one of the things is we know this equity issue kind of goes across many of the programs we have in Leo, and education, frankly, is one of the biggest ways we can get towards equity, ensure that persons of color have this opportunity, they know about it, and work on that. So it's a great point to bring up, and it's something that we're mindful of, not only just in this work, but other work that we do across Leo.
Thank you. I just want to clarify as well, as I understand it, Future for Frontliners is no longer accepting applications. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And Representative Hill.
Thank you. 2 questions, and this has been really a terrific hearing. I wondered on the new, in the new budget, what's the timing of those? When would those actually roll out? Because I have been made aware by some of my K-12 constituents that sometimes when we put the money out there, it doesn't align with school schedules very well. So just wanted to just flag that, if nothing else. And then, what was my other question? It got lost. Yeah, that's fine. I can maybe ask the other one when I remember.
No, I think the school calendar question is an important one. It also speaks to, we often get questions about, we have this pool of applicants and we're getting them turned over to enrollees. Some of that has to do with, we still traditionally think of a school year starting in the fall, and so many people, if you apply in, say now in March, your thought process is always, I'm going to actually start school in the fall. In terms of the funding process, we are kind of tied into the fiscal year start. But hopefully, as the
Which
legislature
is, just please, the fiscal year start is?
is October 1st. And so in terms of the movement of funds, we're not, assuming that the legislature has come to an agreement with the governor on the budget and it's signed, money can't start moving until October 1st. But, hopefully the conversations that are happening with the budget and being in the process to have that done in the time frame that it has over the last couple of years will allow us to at least signal to community colleges that this money is coming, that's happening, and that goes a long ways in terms of the preparation that's needed that I think is important for these programs. But it's we're not able to move fiscal 24 dollars until fiscal year 24.
I just want to add to that. I think once it's passed, there is some work to, design the actual implementation. And that's why our partnership with the Community College Association is so critical, because it does allow us to work to really understand from the college perspective, sort of the things that might seem easy on financial aid, sort of outside. The colleges are like, actually, that is very difficult for us to figure out. And so our close partnership to really make that implementation as easy as possible for the colleges has been really vital.
All right, I think we have one more question, a little follow-up. Representative Vanderwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it very much. And thank you again for being here. Just, I kind of want to do a follow-up on some clarification on the federal aid. My understanding that federal aid is a gift. It does not have to be repaid. Is that correct?
Yeah, federal Pell grants are grants. They don't have to be repaid.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it.
Representative Kuntz?
Mine is a generic comment. Thank you both for coming, and thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, this is my last meeting with the Higher Education Committee. I've been reassigned. It was not my choice. It was not the chair's choice. I had looked excitedly to be here, and I've been reassigned, but I just want to wish you all the best. So thank you for the 2 meetings, and look forward to seeing great things come from this committee. I'm sorry to be going, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any additional questions today? Yes, Rep. Paez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if you, talking about identifying careers, and I was wondering if you knew which programs are going into the most, and also, since you have the bachelor's degree pathway, I'm wondering if those budget numbers have been changed or are changing. From what I hear, more people are going into 2-year and vocational programs, and this is bachelor's pathway. So I'm wondering if those funding asks have been or are being readjusted.
So I think on the funding program for the completion, I think it really is geared towards this issue of, we have lots of folks around Michigan who have some level of college degree, or not college degree, college credit, excuse me, but don't have that completion. And so it's really focused on, we have some numbers in terms of those people, and that's where that completion came from. It's really focusing on those people who have started the process but need to complete it, because the worst of all worlds is you have some college credit, all of the debt, and none of the credentials.
So would that be geared more than towards your four-year bachelor programs?
Yeah,
The
so the
people who started them, and
yeah.
are they
they-
changing, do you think? Are they continuing then with the four-year degree programs? Or are you noticing changes in what people are studying, or are they,
Trends.
yeah, trends, good word. Yes.
The
you.
bachelor's degree program hasn't launched, so we don't know yet what people will be studying. That is something that we hope to see. We have data on students once they complete for Reconnect what their credential was in, so we can put together something, since that's been a question for a couple of people. Our assumption, I think our assumption on the bachelor's degree pathway is that it may be less about changing their subject or their field of study, and more about they were dealing with mental health issues, family problems, actual health concerns that sort of took them off track. And a lot of the folks who stepped out, we're assuming will go back to the same institution. We don't know what that will mean for their field of study.
Okay, so then, excuse me. we haven't
If I
seen
can
the-
step in just for a second, Representative, I just want to flag that we are going to have the Michigan Association of State Universities here soon. And they might be better equipped to answer questions about four-year programs and degree seeking. Yeah. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again to our guests. Really appreciate the information. I'm sure we will be seeking out some follow-up data from you, but thank you so much for explaining these programs that look like they've made a huge positive impact in a lot of ways here in the state. So appreciate your time this morning. Oh, and then I have to adjourn. With that, the committee will stand adjourned.